Professor Vincent Ferraro, before we get into any of the specifics or the particulars, in terms of international diplomacy, how meaningful is it, in your opinion, just having even this kind of preliminary agreement and discussion with Iran?
Well, the nuclear issue aside, the fact that the United States and Iran are talking face to face is really profoundly significant. I mean, this is a big change since 1979. You got to remember that Iran is a very powerful state. It's got a large population, very well educated. It's been out in the cold for a long period of time. Opening up to Iran opens up all sorts of different possibilities in the Middle East.
What we have now on the table is a temporary 6-month agreement in which Iran basically says it will slow its nuclear development program, which it said is basically for medical purposes and for power, production of power. In return, the United States and the other Western powers lift some economic sanctions, gold, petrochemical exports, and financial restraints lifted in some cases. Basically, things that were really hurting the economy in Iran. Put that into perspective. What does this mean to Iran and its people?
Well, actually, lifting the sanctions that you mentioned really isn't all that significant yet. I mean, the financial restrictions are the ones that are really crippling the Iranian economy, and those are yet to come. So we've still got an awful lot of pressure on Iran. Ultimately, however, what we've seen is India opening up a certain conduit to Iran for oil. We've seen other countries trying to exploit this opening. I think that over time it's going to lift up the Iranian economy substantially. But it'll be a very slow process. The screws have been loosened, but they're still pretty tight.
Israel doesn't like this deal at all. The Prime Minister, Netanyahu, called it an historic mistake. Israel's not happy. The United States, their key ally internationally, played a major role in brokering this deal. Do you see serious or long-term impact on Israeli-U.S. relations?
Well, yes, I do. I think it's unquestionably true that the Netanyahu government really opposed this agreement. I mean, I would hesitate to speak for the Israeli people. I don't know how they think about the agreement. But I'll be perfectly frank, there's no way to offer the Netanyahu government the level of certainty that it wanted on the issue of nuclear enrichment in Iran. The United States, more or less, overrode the objections of not just Israel, but Saudi Arabia, who both fear a nuclear-armed Iran. This has widened the gulf between the United States and between Israel and the United States and Saudi Arabia and the United States. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They're two very reliable allies, but there are other players in the Middle East. And I think it's very important for the United States to give itself a little freedom of maneuverability in that region.
Is this a real time of change or potential for change in some of the alignments in that part of the world? And you mentioned Saudi Arabia, and of course the United States and Saudi Arabia have been close for really more than half a century, going back, I think, to the Franklin Roosevelt administration and the Saudi family, the Saud family. And now that's changing a little. There's a little discomfort with how the United States is acting in the Middle East.
Well, I think that the alliance became hidebound. And that's certainly true with the alliance with Israel as well. Both the Israeli government and the Saudi government are really hostage to their domestic situation, and their foreign policy is dictated by their domestic situation. But if you take the example of Saudi Arabia, the monarchy there wishes to establish a Wahhabist-type regime, and we understand why the monarchy wants to do that. But the truth of the matter is, that's not useful for the United States government. I mean, you've got to remember that 19 out of the 20 terrorists in 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. So as long as the Saudis and the Israelis are hostage to their domestic situation, it means that the United States has little freedom in terms of foreign policy. Sending a message to Israel and Saudi Arabia that you've got to think a little more expansively about what your foreign policy interests are is probably a very good message to both of those states.
And yet, not to get too far away from Iran, which we're here to talk about, but the leadership of Saudi Arabia is always kind of riding the back of a tiger, too, in that part of the world, where so many in the Muslim world attack them, say they are too Western, they are not Islamist enough, if you will, if I'm using the terms properly. They ride a difficult spot, too, don't they?
Both countries, both Israel and Saudi Arabia do. There's no question about that. I mean, it's a very, very difficult neighborhood. And I don't want to underestimate the difficulty of both regimes. But the truth of the matter is that foreign policy is different from domestic policy. And the isolation of Saudi Arabia and the isolation of Israel after Operation Cast Lead in Gaza, the breakdown of the regime in Egypt, the movement of Turkey away from the traditional alliances, all those things indicate that the Middle East is in a real state of flux. And all the countries there really have to reassess what their foreign policy objectives are and try to marry them to their domestic constraints, not vice versa. Domestic policy can't be the sole driver of foreign policy.
Well, let's talk domestic policy reaction to this in this country. If Israel doesn't like something, there is a significant Israeli lobby, if you will, in this country. There are any number of states and congressional districts with significant Jewish populations, and many of those people strong supporters of that tremendous emotional support going back to Israel being formed after the Holocaust and World War II. A lot of members of the House, a lot of members of the Senate. I'm guessing maybe more Democrats than Republicans even, just by the way the politics plays out, not real comfortable with this if Israel doesn't like it. This is a tough sell here at home.
A very difficult sell at home. There's no question about that. But the power of the Israel lobby isn't due to the number of Jewish constituents in every congressional district. I mean, you've got to understand that one of the strongest supporters, or the constituency that supports Israel more than any other constituency, is the evangelical Christians. And they're the ones that are really driving the policy toward Israel. It's going to be very difficult for Obama to sell this policy to the Congress. And you're right, Republicans and Democrats are going to have a hard time swallowing this agreement. But again, this is a situation where domestic politics really has got to take a back seat to foreign policy. And Obama's trying to exercise foreign policy in a way that overrides these domestic constraints. It's really important that he be allowed to at least explore these new possibilities. And for the Congress to slam the brakes on right now would be really counterproductive.
We hear the current Iranian president, new Iranian president Rouhani, his foreign minister Zarif called moderates. Now, any title like that obviously is kind of relative in terms of where you are in the world and I suppose who you follow. When it's someone like President Ahmadinejad, put them in perspective. Who are these new leaders of Iran on the world stage?
I think moderate or radical is probably inappropriate. I mean, really what we have is a new leadership in Iran that understands that the continued isolation of Iran from the world stage is very bad policy for the Iranian people. They are constrained by what we call the hardliners in Iran, no question about that. But the truth of the matter is that they're not going to give up on the idea of the Islamic Revolution, and we shouldn't expect them to. I don't think the United States and Iran are going to be close friends. The real question is, can they be reasonable adversaries? And I think they can. And Rouhani understands this, as does Zarif. I was really encouraged when I read that Zarif is going on a charm offensive, if you will. He's going to Saudi Arabia, he's going to Kuwait, he's going to all the Sunni Muslim states, trying to forge a new relationship. That's critically important to the acceptance of Iran as a player in the Middle Eastern politics.
Well, Professor Vincent Ferraro, Professor of Politics, Mount Holyoke College, thank you for being with us, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.